the success the musicians are feeling after the earnings improved a little bit, given the tax measures that took effect at the start of this month. But politics is never too far away from a place where politicians are, and we've seen the sentiments that came from there. And Linus, I'll start with you. I know you're a keen student of not just the politics of Kenya, but the politics of Mount Kenya specifically. I don't know what you heard and saw that perhaps wasn't on TV, even though those people were speaking on TV.
Yes, there is a lot that we didn't hear that was going on there, and that is the political undertones of the whole event. Genuinely, and the Royal Media Services has been a key player in the Skiza space and trying to bring about better terms for our artists. And there was a very legitimate celebration right there. You know, we run the Skiza platform as well as RMS, and a majority of those musicians were actually there to celebrate the 10% tax relief that they're getting, which will improve their earnings. And
actually, from I think 16% to 43,
16 to 41%.
Yeah.
41%, yes.
It's still something that
it's
is
quite major.
still out there. It is significant and quite worth the celebration that Chairman SK Macharia provided right there. But again, this was Murang'a, and the collection of number of politicians that were present, number of leaders that were present, slowly politics started coming in. And it was bound to happen. Bound to happen in the sense that Raila Odinga seemed to have all his allies lined up right there, and they used the occasion to sort of reintroduce him to Central Kenya. And it comes at a time when Deputy President William Ruto has been making inroads in Central Kenya. So what we are seeing right there is the beginning of the scramble. I don't know whether to call it a beginning or continuation of the scramble for the Mount Kenya vote. And here is the big assumption that is being made. The big assumption that is being made is Central Kenya, which is a vote-rich area, will not have a presidential candidate. So they'll back one of the many that are actually out there right now trying to woo them for votes. And there is Raila Odinga, there is the Deputy President, and of course there is Okoa Kenya. We'll hear a lot more. And we also have Speaker Muturi, who comes from, we only recently got to know about Mount Kenya East and Mount Kenya West, and there's a factor right there. So we're going to have an interesting year because of the main assumption that for the first time since 1992, Central Kenya will not have a key political contender for office of the president. So the assumption has been made there that, you know, you are going to support somebody else. It won't be one of you. It will be either Raila Odinga, William Ruto, or who knows, Okoa as well, if they are going independent. So if we could start there, Joe.
Yeah,
Francis,
interesting.
Francis breathed in. So.
Yes, I did, because the scramble is on. Actually, the scramble has been on. And Linus calls it an assumption. So far, there doesn't seem to be that one clear contender for the presidency from the Mount Kenya region, at least up to now, unless something happens. The closest probably you have is Justin Muturi, the Speaker of the National Assembly, who has said he's in the race for the presidency. But as it were, the mountain region finds itself in a very interesting scenario, in an interesting political space, a space it has not been since the advent of multipartyism in 1992. All along, all those years, all those general elections, there has been a contender, a main one for that matter, from the Mount Kenya region. This time round seems a little different. However, bear in mind that this is a region that has a sizable number of votes, enough votes that can influence the outcome of a presidential poll. Basically, if the region was to unite and vote for one person, it could easily determine the outcome of a presidential election by its numbers. But is it likely that the numbers will go to one candidate, en masse in a basket? Maybe not. And that is exactly why you see the scramble for that mountain. A scenario where each of the candidates wants to get, a chunk of this big basket. But as we keep saying, it's a little too early. A few things are likely to happen between now and maybe January, February next year. Quite a number of formations are likely to come up. But be it as it may, it is important to note who is in whose camp. You saw the governors from the Mount Kenya region are casting their lot with Raila Odinga, the ODM leader, talking about the Laikipia governor, talking about the Kiambu governor. You could see the Kirinyaga governor. Murang'a governor was there, Mwangi wa Iria, but he says he is also interested in the presidency. It is also important to look at the number of MPs and where they are. And what is the likelihood of all these leaders looking for votes for a certain presidential candidate and at the same time getting their own votes for the respective positions they will be looking for. History shows us that we have a scenario where people don't vote in, they vote out. Look at what happened in the parliamentary race in the Mount Kenya region in 2013 and 2017. Up to about 70% of the parliamentarians didn't come back. And even for the governors, you can clearly tell that a good number of them will have to struggle to get their own votes. So it is looking for candidate A, B, C, D's votes, while at the same time you're looking for your own votes. It will be very Herculean. But as it were, let's wait and see. The game continues. And
Gachagua has made a strong point about the votes in Mount Kenya. I was looking at statistics. The 10 counties combined had about 5.3 million votes. That's about 31% of 19.6 million votes. So that's the kura that inatafuta. And if you look at history, Mount Kenya has always voted as a bloc for the candidate from Mount Kenya. The only times they've split those votes is when they've had probably two candidates from the region. Go as far back, I think, when there was Matiba on one hand and Mwai Kibaki on another, and then when there was Mwai Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta. And then in 2013, they all voted overwhelmingly for Uhuru Kenyatta in the same way they did in 2017. So as you've said, the importance of the central vote cannot be underscored. But I think also we talk about how for close to 3-4 years, the Deputy President has gone to central Kenya several times. I may visit kila mahali huko, and he's doing it quite frequently. And I've noticed now that also Raila Odinga started doing the same. He started visiting central Kenya more frequently. But something he said, I think, during the meeting in Dakaini, and also I think he repeated today, was that they're going to start having these regular now meetings across the country, kuzunguka now. I think today when they were speaking, announcing that ODM has officially exited from NASA, they said they've scheduled regional meetings and engagements, which have already been planned. And of course, the particulars will be shared going forward. So it'll be interesting to see how those meetings will be in terms of, one, attendance, two, the mood, how it will be, what will be said, and what sort of like reception he will receive when he goes around central Kenya, because wherever the Deputy President has gone, actually he's actually received a crowd. I was looking at a video, I think it was in Nyandarua a couple of days ago. And there's a huge crowd there, and of course, they were shouting slogans and all that. But I would really like to see what kind of reception both of them do get now, as they now go full out to try and woo that region. Considering the fact that so far ODM leader Raila Odinga has not officially put his hat in the race for presidency. So the next few weeks will be very, very interesting.
Though he has been throwing subtle hints that he's in the race. I mean, talked about the kind of a public service he would want, talking about a rural economy, gives you subtle hints that he's in the race. But it is also important to point out that as Linus jumps in, the question of Raila Odinga in Mount Kenya region versus William Ruto in Mount Kenya region. In 2013-2017, Uhuru Kenyatta, president, and his deputy, then running mate, were campaigning in the Mount Kenya region. And the object of aggression then was Honorable Raila Odinga.
Yes.
Now you have a scenario where the object of aggression in 3 general elections, 2007, 2013, 2017, is now in the race and wooing the same region that been made an object of aggression, tells you the kind of a contest that you're going to have. Then on the other hand, you have a scenario where the person that President Uhuru Kenyatta campaigned with in the Mount Kenya region is now on the opposite direction, so to say. So that makes the Mount Kenya region interesting insofar as that scramble is concerned, because here is one person who you are told is an enemy of the region, and here is a person you're told is a friend of the region, and all of a sudden the president who came with the deputy is telling you, this guy, I don't trust him. On the other hand, the person you're told is the enemy of the region is now wooing the same region for the votes. Makes it a very interesting race.
And for me, I think what stood out for me during that Murang'a event was how, and picking on sort of what you are talking about, where some of these leaders went out of their way to say, you know, Kamanda, I think, talking about Safisha, because there's apparently this tag that's been put on him, and then people like Orengo saying, actually, there is nothing to clean up. I mean, the guy is all clean. So there's a recognition, without a doubt, that there is some baggage that Raila Odinga comes with that is carried all over, over the years, which baggage was put on his back by President Uhuru Kenyatta, among other people, and therefore that has to be undone in some respects. But I think also, and Linus, I think you could come in with this, because I saw an interesting attempt to, you called it reintroduce Raila Odinga, but sort of using the historical perspectives, historical ties. You know, even Raila himself recalling the sort of relationship he has had with the region, going back to the struggle for independence, talking about what happened back then. And I think there was an attempt to invoke old memories that mean something to a certain demographic in that region, to sort of say, you know what, this person may not be as bad as you've been told. He's the same person who came here with Mwai Kibaki, said Kibaki Tosha, and came here and he was called Jamba, and those things, and kind of trying to ride on historical memories that might mean something to that region.
Yes, invoking history, Joe, because let's talk tribes here. The Kikuyu and the Luo communities are the two communities that knew how to organize politically, or went into political organization quite early, before independence. And then during the struggle for independence, their formations were very, very clear. And working together in the Kenya African National Union, KANU, as opposed to KADU, which was bringing together smaller communities, and winning the independence elections and all that, which is why history was being invoked here. And history is being invoked, and if you remember, there was some reference to Deni, some debt, old debts. I think we owe it to our discussion here to try and explain some of these debts. The first debt was the independence debt that was incurred by founding President Jomo Kenyatta, when Jaramogi Oginga Odinga was asked by the colonial authorities to actually become prime minister and form a government when Kenyatta was still in prison. And what Jaramogi said was, no freedom without Kenyatta. So, and he coined a slogan called Uhuru na Kenyatta. So they have to come together. And he stood very firmly for that. Otherwise, really, if he had given in or taken this very attractive offer, he would have been the first prime minister serving, while Jomo Kenyatta would still have been in jail. So there is that history of a political alliance. And there is something else that the two communities, and let's talk tribes here because it actually matters. Because at independence, especially just before the independence, we had the general election that was splitting the country between KANU and KADU, where KADU was seen to be a tool of the colonial government. Their interests were safer there. So KANU was seen as the truly nationalistic side. So there was an attempt also to play a lot of games within KANU. And history gives credit to Tom Mboya and to Jaramogi Oginga Odinga in how they brought in their organizational skills in ensuring KANU is a formidable election vehicle. And both of them still placed Kenyatta, who was much older than the rest of the independence leaders, as the figurehead of Kenya's political independence. So that's one of the debts that they look at. And we also know from the history that it really went bad between 1966 and 1969 when Jomo Kenyatta and Jaramogi Oginga Odinga fell out. Remember, Jaramogi Oginga Odinga had actually started off as vice president and served for only about 3 years. He had to leave because of ideological differences with Jomo Kenyatta. So when they invoke history, it's because they know the very complex politics around the struggle for independence and how leaders of these two communities were instrumental in not just securing the independence of Kenya, but also ensuring that Jomo Kenyatta is released from prison first. And they also did ensure, and Jaramogi did ensure, as did Tom Mboya, that Jomo Kenyatta becomes president. Death number two. Death number two was in 2002. This time incurred by another Central Kenya politician, and that is Mwai Kibaki. Mwai Kibaki was endorsed by Raila Odinga. There was a Kibaki Tosha rallying call that was made on the 14th of October 2002 at Uhuru Park. And that turned the game, basically. The election was decided so early because of that call, and KANU struggled from that. From then on, Mwai Kibaki went on to win the election. Now, in a repeat of the 60s, there was betrayal again in the trashing of the MOU there was an MOU between Raila Odinga's Liberal Democratic Party and Mwai Kibaki's National Alliance Party of Kenya, NAK. And the MOU was to split government into two. The MOU was really something like what brought together TNA
and
URP in 2013, where now the protagonists then go to form the government on a 50-50 basis. That was a 50-50 basis that LDP and NAK had reached, but President Kibaki reneged. So those are the debts. Would it have been, what would have happened had Raila not endorsed Mwai Kibaki?
Anybody's guess.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to take a break.
1992, 1997 would have happened, where the opposition had all the votes.
Yes. But
the winner, KANU, then had a fraction of
just about a third, actually.
Yeah,
but then we didn't have 50+1. So President Moi
majority
knew how to deal with that. So I think let's take a short break. We'll be right back with Newsgang. On the other side, we'll be talking about the real death this time of NASA. And then, of course, we still have a few things about bottom up, bottom down, the economic conversation.